What happened to the smartest kid in your class? There are two. I remember one of them crying when they got an A- on a test in like 7th grade. One of them, the one who cried, is an executive in a Fortune 500 company. Nothing special but making a lot of money. The other one is a brain surgeon. Sounds like my cousin. She had a complete breakdown from getting an A on a test. But her father was also super physically abusive if she got anything less than 100%. Even as a young child, coloring outside the lines was not allowed. She's now a teacher with an Instagram perfect life. It's far from perfect. I didn't realize that was a thing until in 7th grade when my buddy got a B+ and he started hyperventilating and crying because my dad is going to beat my ass, as he said. Came to school with black eyes, and CPS was involved by the end of the day as everyone remembered him freaking out. The smartest kid in my school was really popular and was one of my closest friends. But when he graduated, he left everyone and everything behind, including his family. He even changed his name. I found out this little bit of information because a friend went to an academic conference and showed me a group photo and he was in it. I exclaimed, "That's my friend Pascal." He kept his first name, but his last name was an anagram of his original name. I knew a guy who did this. One of my best friend's older brother. He got a degree in German and moved to South Korea for a little while. Next thing we know, he had moved back to his native state but to a small town and had taken on a whole new persona. Different name and all. Apparently he spoke with a German accent in his new life. We met a guy who only knew him as the new version. That conversation was wild. I had an anatomy professor who went to med school in the UK in his 20s, came back 5 years later and changed his name and used a super thick British accent. He's in jail for murder. Came as a surprise. I'm gonna need you to elaborate on that. He was a really nice, friendly guy. Didn't expect him to ever be violent. Then one day I read he shot his business partner execution style. I'm going to need you to elaborate much more on that, this time in the form of a limited docu series. LMAO, it's hard to elaborate on something I don't really know all that much about, sadly. In school he was known for being super friendly and helpful to all the other students in class. Even held study groups and stuff. A few years later and I read he killed his business partner and that he got connected to a bunch of fraud and embezzlement cases. Dropped out of college to marry and support the much younger woman he got pregnant. Now, 30 years later, owns a board game store with a large back room for mini painting and games and plays dad to half the neurodivergent kids in town. Still married to the same woman too. It's not a high-flying life, but he makes a difference to so many people. Edit, wow, this blew up. To make y'all feel better, he was 23 I think and she was 18, a big age gap when you're young. It was also in the Netherlands, where at least at the time, I've been gone a while, we didn't really care so much as long as it wasn't a 10-year difference or one of them was under 15. Teenagers have sex drives, it happens. This is the most wholesome thing on here. Depends on how much younger the woman was. But I guess if they're together after 30 years it was meant to be. Guy had 3 scholarship offers, lasted 1 year in uni before jumping off a building. Feel sorry for him and his family. I was in a really dark place at the start of this year, during my first week in uni. I was the stereotypical gifted kid during secondary school and 6th form, 12 to 18 education total in the UK, especially during secondary. The teachers would have me check their answers, and if I got a different result to the textbook they'd have to come in as a mediator to see who's right. I wanted to kill myself during my first university year. I still struggle with the thoughts. This was made worse by my depression affecting my results, making my grades and performance drop, and because I for so long had valued myself according to academic achievement, it really burned. I felt especially worthless. There's a bridge on the way to the train station in University. It's not a big drop, but it's right above a motorway. I thought about jumping off a lot. I resonate with this story. I can only hope that I don't head back into that dark place when my second year starts. Just worth mentioning, life is not a race or a competition. You have all of your remaining years to get a degree, and you can only stay alive in the present. I'd try to ensure your survival first and foremost. Don't be afraid to make the changes necessary for your survival. Taking time away from education to seek necessary treatment is a much smaller bump in the road than your body. Take care and stay aware. The smartest one I knew ended up drowning, tragically, right after we graduated. I wish I could have seen him make an impact on the world. I knew a guy like that too. His twin brother has been devastated since. So sad. That's weird. Some years ago we had two twin teens get in a terrible car accident speeding and the one died. The other was a mess and then faced charges. It was just awful and I wonder how he's doing now. It's strange that you say this because a similar thing happened right after my high school graduation. Two twins brothers were speeding and got into a terrible accident and the one twin died. Sadly it was the one not driving who passed, so the other twin was even more tore up. Only reason he survived is because the steering wheel prevented him from being ejected through the front windshield. Superstar pediatric neurosurgeon. Most confident person I've ever met. Guess you'd have to be, to cut open a little kid's skull and operate on their brain. The anesthetist who did my wife's spinal block during her C-section was super confident. He asked me if I wanted to watch him put the needle in her spine, and while he was preparing I said it's a bit nerve-wracking knowing a needle is about to go into her spine. He looked me in the eye, held his hand out between us to show how eerily still it was, and said nothing to worry about. Any other context I'd think him arrogant as fuck, but right there I was happy to have a confident bloke doing the job. He spent years researching how to cloak himself like the Predator from the 1987 film with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He got surprisingly far before he ended up getting a top-secret government job. Haven't heard from him since. Maybe he's a secret agent, maybe he actually became the Predator? No one knows. Why didn't you say haven't seen him since? It was there on a silver platter. Please like and subscribe for more daily content.